There are 7 deadly sins and 7 heavenly virtues, and for each there's a celebrity that embodies it. We'll start with wrath versus patience, and for this we have James Corden and Keanu Reeves. Wrath can be defined as uncontrolled feelings of anger, rage, or even hatred. Despite having a successful career in TV and being the host of The Late Late Show, various stories about James Corden tell us he's not as friendly as his on-screen personality might suggest. In 2022, James went for a meal at a popular New York restaurant called Balthazar, a place frequented by many celebrities. The eatery is owned by Keith McNally, a renowned restaurateur known for several popular establishments around the world. Corden had a tense exchange with some of the workers at the restaurant that led to him getting banned, and afterwards McNally made an Instagram post calling him out for his behavior. James Corden is a hugely gifted comedian but a tiny cretin of a man, and the most abusive customer to my Balthazar servers since the restaurant opened 25 years ago. McNally went on to explain that Corden was nasty to Balthazar's manager after finding a hair in his food. He demanded that the manager cover all of their drinks and bring another round immediately, otherwise he'd leave a nasty Yelp review. Later, he became angry at the waitstaff after the kitchen made a mistake with his wife's omelette order. Apparently, he yelled like crazy at the server, telling them they can't do their job. After McNally's post-court traction, Corden called him to apologize and was subsequently unbanned from the restaurant. However, shortly after, James did an interview with the New York Times where he denied he did anything wrong on any level. You might think this incident was a one-off, but you don't have to look far to find other troubling stories about Corden. Becky Habersberger, the wife of Try Guys member Keith Habersberger, claimed to have watched him scream at a Los Angeles busboy who was trying to help him.
And I overhear the busboy telling James Corden that Little Dom's is closed right now. It's closed right now. They close in the middle of the day between lunch and dinner. And he's telling James Corden that he can get him a reservation, right when they open. He was trying to be really accommodating. And James Corden yells at this busboy, "A lot of good that does me, mate. A lot of good that does me."
Then there's a long list of personal accounts on Reddit from people who've met or worked with James in person, saying he was mean and short-tempered and screamed at them or others around him. In stark contrast, you have Keanu Reeves. You could say Keanu embodies many of the heavenly virtues, but one he certainly embodies is patience. The virtue of patience can be described as the ability to calmly wait without getting upset or angry. Keanu has been a household name for a very long time, and few have had as successful a career in film. With his level of fame, you'll always have people coming up to you, asking for photos or otherwise interrupting your day. For many celebrities, this really bothers them, and sometimes they're short or rude, but not Keanu. It seems no matter what kind of day Keanu's having, he makes time for his fans, and there are countless stories of him going above and beyond. One man spoke of a time he approached Keanu at a restaurant while he was with a woman, possibly on a date. The man's grandmother had a massive crush on Keanu because he reminded her of her husband when he was young. She'd had a stroke and was housebound for the last 10 years of her life, and spent a lot of time watching Keanu's movies. The man told him this, and Keanu asked if he had a cell phone on him. When the man said he did, he asked him to call her, then spent several minutes chatting with her on the phone. When recalling the story, the man said of his grandmother, she was so isolated, and his genuine kindness to her and interest in her showed what a truly amazing man he is. There are many similar stories like this about Keanu, but his kind and patient nature is documented on video too. He still takes the subway even though he could easily afford a personal driver, and in one video someone took of him, he can be seen giving up his seat for another passenger. There are also many clips of him entertaining kids who love his movies, talking about different characters he's played and so on.
Did you see Duke Kaboom in Toy Story 4?
Yeah, he's my favorite character.
Canada's greatest stuntman! Well, I'm glad you liked it.
Envy versus kindness can be represented by Will Smith and Adam Sandler. The sin of envy can be described as the desire for others' traits, status, abilities, or situation, and this fits Will Smith like a glove. It's no secret that Will's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, had an intimate and loving relationship with Tupac Shakur. Although they were never romantically involved, Jada has referred to Tupac as her soulmate and has publicly shared her love for him on many occasions. The two met at a young age when they attended the Baltimore School for Arts together, and very quickly they became inseparable after connecting over their shared passion for theatrical arts. Although Tupac passed before his time, he was and still is a big part of Jada's life.
We definitely had this beautiful closeness that was really intimate. A lot of emotional intimacy, a lot of intellectual intimacy.
In Will's memoir released in 2021, he spoke about how Jada and Tupac's relationship affected him, saying that he felt tortured by the bond they shared.
Were you ever jealous of the love Jada had for Tupac?
Oh, fuck yeah. I could never open up to interact with Pop. She just loved him like he was the image of perfection, but she was with the Fresh Prince, you know? So it was like, I never could, like, even we were in a room together a couple times, I couldn't speak to him, you know, I couldn't handle it, you know. I was the soft rapper from Philly, right, and he was Pop. Yeah, no, I was deeply insecure, and just, I wasn't man enough to handle that relationship.
But his envy of Tupac wasn't just due to his relationship with Jada. You see, Will's father was a violent alcoholic who used to abuse his mother when he was growing up. He was only a kid when it was going on, so he felt powerless to do anything about it. In his book, he wrote, "When I was 9 years old, I watched my father punch my mother in the side of the head so hard that she collapsed. I saw her spit blood. That moment in that bedroom, probably more than any other moment in my life, has defined who I am."
An unshakable feeling that no matter what I have done, no matter how successful I've become, no matter how much money I've made or how many #1 hits I've had, how many box office records I've broken, there's that subtle and silent feeling always pulsating in the back of my mind that I'm a coward, that I've failed, that I'm sorry, my mom, so sorry.
It's because of this he felt a different but equally strong envy of Tupac. He said Tupac had a fearless passion that was intoxicating, a militant morality, and a willingness to fight and die for what he believed was right. This made Will feel completely inadequate, as there were qualities he felt he lacked in himself. "I hated that I wasn't what he was in this world, and I suffered a raging jealousy. I wanted Jada to look at me like that." Will's envy of Tupac has been like a festering wound over the years, and when you couple that with the regrets from his childhood, what he did at the 2022 Oscars makes a bit more sense. He felt Chris Rock was disrespecting his wife, and he did what I guess he wished he did all those years ago as a little kid. On the other side of the coin, we have Adam Sandler, who represents the virtue of kindness, which can be described as showing compassion, empathy, and goodwill towards others. Adam comes across as a super down-to-earth and chilled guy, often getting around in a simple hoodie and basketball shorts. There are numerous videos of him online playing pickup basketball at local courts in London and New York.
We just watched him play and it was awesome. He's a very selfless player. He likes to pass. It's awesome.
He doesn't use his celebrity status to get special treatment, as can be seen in one video clip of him entering IHOP with his daughter. He walked into the restaurant asking for a table, but the worker there didn't recognize it was him and told him it would be a 30-minute wait. Sandler decided to leave, and the worker later realized it was him. She posted footage of the incident on TikTok, asking him to please come back. Adam jokingly responded on Twitter saying, "For the record, I only left the IHOP because the nice woman told me the all-you-can-eat deal didn't apply to the milkshakes." IHOP took notice of this and announced they'd hold a Milkshake Monday at all their Long Island locations, including the one Sandler attempted to dine at. He returned to the restaurant where he surprised the worker who turned him away and posted a tweet promoting IHOP and thanking them for Milkshake Monday. I know people aren't always fans of Adam Sandler movies, but I honestly love the guy. He seems like the nicest, most down-to-earth person. He's one of the few celebrities who I think would be a good person to sit and have a beer with. As well as being a kind, stand-up guy day to day, Sandler's also known for being extremely generous with his friends. For years, he's repeatedly cast many of his good friends in his movies, providing them with extra work and consistent pay. Once, after the success of Grown Ups, which made $272 million on a budget of $75 million, Sandler gave each of his friends and co-stars, Chris Rock, David Spade, Rob Schneider, and Kevin James, a brand new $200,000 Maserati, costing him roughly $800,000 in total. There are two men who represent lust versus chastity perfectly, Dan Bilzerian and Kevin Jonas. Lust can be defined as a strong passion or longing, particularly for sexual desires. One look at Dan Bilzerian's Instagram account will tell you everything you need to know about him. He loves parties, money, guns, and most of all, women. He's constantly surrounded by hordes of beautiful women who are almost all half his age, and you can guess what type of things go on.
How many women have you slept with in your life total?
Thousands. Like I said, I was having sex with 3 girls a day on average, at least at a minimum. I mean, if I only had sex with 2 girls in a day, that was like, we're having some real off day or something, right? Yeah. And some days 4, sometimes, whatever, 5, 7, the most was 9. I don't know, I had a 9-some with like some, or 10-some, I guess, you count yourself, 10-some.
His self-proclaimed sex addiction is at least in part rooted in childhood insecurities, as he's admitted he didn't have a lot of success with women growing up.
I don't know, man. It's like that deep-seated feeling that there's like a lack. Like when I was growing up, I didn't feel like I got enough pussy and I always wanted more.
But around 2012, he figured out a way to give himself way more options.
I kind of like figured out that life is more about setup. You know, I wanted to like set it up so that I could get laid without like having a bunch of conversations and dates and whatnot. So when I'd have these pool parties, I'd have like 30 of my friends, 30 of my guy friends, and then like 200 to 300 girls. And
how did all those girls get to go there?
You know, promoters, girls, you know, girls would invite girlfriends, and I had, you know, manicures, pedicures, masseuses, and, you know, full staff and everything. So the girls would just come there, hang out, and it was perfect for my, you know, buddies because, you know, it was like a 10-to-1 ratio. So the girls kind of had to compete for the guys, and we could just hang out.
Bilzerian's sex addiction took control of his life for many years, as he just wasn't able to suppress his urges. In his 2021 memoir, he wrote, "Sleeping with tons of women hurts my soul."
It just draws on you, man. Like, it just, eventually you get in the spot where you're like dating all these women, and it's like, they all want part of you or your time or whatever, and so you get like pulled.
Apparently, the time commitment to keep up with all his relationships was a massive burden, but his compulsion controlled his actions.
Why say you're a sex addict?
I mean, dude, if you're having sex 3 to 4 times a day and you feel like that's kind of like the minimum of what you need, you got a problem. 4 hours of my day minimum was spent showering, like texting, minimum. That's actually probably a conservative estimate. It was probably more time than that. Because like managing relationships, like flying girls out, vetting girls, making sure this girl's not a catfish. I mean, it's like a job, dude.
If you watch enough Dan Bilzerian clips, it becomes hard to believe guys like Kevin Jonas exist. Kevin represents the virtue of chastity, which is abstinence from extramarital sex or sexual relations out of wedlock. During their time as Disney stars, the Jonas brothers had a very clean-cut, wholesome image. They grew up in a very conservative Christian household, and their dad was a pastor. As a result of this, each brother ended up wearing a purity ring, which signified their commitment to abstaining from sex until marriage. This became a subject of much discussion, because when you've got 3 teenage boys wearing rings on their fingers, it draws a lot of attention. They were constantly asked about it in interviews, and there was even a whole drama with Russell Brand after he poked fun at them about it while presenting the VMAs. Still, they continued wearing them, but that was until they got a bit older and started dating.
When you're about 15, 16, you start dating, and you go, wait a minute, what did I say I was gonna do?
Eventually, all 3 brothers took their rings off, and it's something they've since said was a mistake.
The purity rings were a bad idea. 1, 2, agree or disagree? You all agree? Wow.
Both Nick and Joe went on to have sex before marriage, but Kevin stayed the course with remaining abstinent until he married the right person. His moment came in 2007 during a vacation to the Bahamas, where he met former hairstylist Danielle Delacia. They ended up dating for 2 years before Kevin, who at the time was 21 years old, proposed to her. Now, 15 years after they got married, they're still together and have 2 daughters. For Gluttony versus Temperance, we'll take a look at Jelly Roll and 50 Cent. Gluttony is an inordinate desire to consume more than which one requires, and this has been a problem for Jelly Roll his entire life. Jelly Roll only became a household name over the last few years following his transition into country music, but now he's one of the most popular artists in the world. He's a man with a very distinctive image, and a big part of why he's so recognizable is his weight. Jelly Roll has always struggled with overeating, dating back well before he rose to fame. In 2018, he posted this picture to Instagram saying, "In 2015, I weighed over 500 pounds, not sure how much. The doctor's scales only weigh to 500 pounds. They suggested I go to a meat processor or truck stop to get my actual weight. It was one of the most embarrassing days of my life, and the bottom line, I had done it to myself. I continued to spiral out of control and dealt with the news by more food, more drugs, and more liquor. In late 2016, I started fighting to save my own life. I lost roughly 200 pounds. It wasn't a fast journey, it was actually quite slow. Earlier this year, I began overeating and overdrinking again. I don't want to blame it on tour, but man, it's so hard to balance life, living out of truck stops and always running late to shows, never getting adequate sleep and all the drinking. I'm embarrassed to say that I gained 60 pounds back. Today is the day I start over and fight my lifelong demon again. I've been obese since I was a small child. All I've ever known was being fat, and I'm fucking miserable. I want to skydive, bungee jump, ride a bull, parasail, ride roller coasters. I want to live a normal life and have a normal relationship with food. I fight addictions and alcoholism every day." Over the years that followed, Jelly Roll's weight continued to fluctuate and he never really got it under control. It affected literally every aspect of his life, from his relationships with friends and family to his performances on stage. He wanted more than anything to change, but it's extremely difficult to break bad habits you've had your whole life.
But dude, you fucking set some snacks out somewhere and don't let me hover around them more than 2 or 3 minutes. I'll start filling my pockets up like I'm in jail and I'm never gonna see them again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, for sure.
You want them snacks, yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about the snacks. But I also don't worry about it as much as I should because I've been on this roller coaster my whole life where I'm a little more plump right now, but I can show you pictures when I was less plump and I can show you pictures when I was more plump. I just kind of, it's kind of part of what I deal with, just trying to get on the other side of the mountain.
Now, Jelly Roll is on his weight loss journey again and he's down 70 or so pounds. He said he's running 2 to 3 miles 4 to 6 times a week, with 20 to 30 minutes in the sauna and 6 minutes in a cold plunge every day. Here's hoping he can lose the weight and keep it off. On the flip side, we have the virtue of temperance, defined as moderation or voluntary self-restraint. 50 Cent breaks the mold of what we've come to expect from rappers. Despite what many of the lyrics in his songs suggest, he hardly ever drinks and doesn't smoke or do drugs, not even in his heyday.
You've never taken drugs? You've never done alcohol?
I've drunk before, but not like...
Not much?
Yeah.
And you don't anymore?
I've had an experience that what made me like a paranoid because of it, and I stayed away from it following that.
Smoke?
No.
I mean, you're one of the squeakiest, cleanest men I've ever met.
This hasn't changed as he's gotten older, and it's pretty surprising, especially because 50 is in the liquor business, but he says he avoids drinking because he likes to keep a clear head. Still, he has to promote his various lines of liquor, so he has a routine when he's out with his friends partying. He said, "First, I'll pour drinks from a bottle of champagne for everyone who's in VIP with me. When the bottle is empty, I'll give it to one of my guys and have him quietly refill it with ginger ale. For the rest of the night, I'll have that bottle in my hand. I'll take swigs every now and then just to keep the vibe right, but I'm not drinking anything but Canada Dry."
I have never missed a session at the gym, a meeting, or early morning flight because I had too much to drink the night before.
50's discipline is reflected in his physique, and for many years it was hailed as the best physique in hip-hop. His strict focus is also to thank for his being able to transition from the world of music to the world of business. Next, we have humility versus pride, and for this, we'll look at Kanye West and Post Malone. Both these men are music artists, yet their personalities are worlds apart. Kanye West represents a sin of pride, defined as an excessive love of one's own excellence. There's no denying the man is talented, but the levels of self-importance he shows are off the charts, to the point that sometimes it almost seems comical.
When someone comes up and says something like, "I am a god," everybody says, "Who does he think he is?" I just told you who I thought I was, a god. I just told you, that's who I think I am.
If we take a look at Kanye's past, there are numerous moments where his arrogance has caused him to say or do something he absolutely shouldn't have. There's the moment he hijacked Taylor Swift's speech as she accepted her award at the 2009 VMAs just to praise Beyoncé for a music video of hers. The time he went off script during a nationally televised telethon for Hurricane Katrina victims to say that George Bush doesn't care about black people. When he tried running for president in 2020 with seemingly little to no preparation. And more recently, his anti-black and anti-Semitic comments. Kanye has always believed he's cut from a different cloth, that he can do as he pleases and that the way he sees the world is somehow enlightened.
For me to say I wasn't a genius, I would just be lying to you and to myself.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Post Malone, who represents humility, a virtue characterized by a modest and unassuming attitude and a willingness to serve others. Post Malone, despite what his appearance might suggest, is one of the nicest, most down-to-earth celebrities around. When there are compilations out there showing how much of a good guy you are, you know you're doing something right. There's the viral clip of him greeting an autistic fan of his on his 21st birthday as he had his first pint. Then there's a time he gave away his $5,000 guitar to an 11-year-old fan after a concert.
You want a guitar? Yes! It's like a $5,000 guitar, so you have to promise me. You have to promise me. Look at me. You gotta promise me that you're gonna take care of it and play it, okay?
Post Malone seems to treat everyone with love and respect, regardless of who they are, such as in this clip where he spends time chatting with paparazzi.
Boss, I want you to know that I really like your music.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
that means
definitely.
a lot to me.
Can you say hello to Nicole?
Well, hi, Nicole. Love you guys. Turn up.
The way he thanks people when they say they love his music, such a humble and down-to-earth dude. There are multiple instances where Post has made a fan's dreams come true by inviting them on stage to play with him, but his acts of kindness extend even further, as can be seen from this Reddit post where a server talked about how great of a tipper he is. Been serving nearly 20 years and by far the best tip I've ever received. Such a genuine and cool dude. She attached a picture of the receipt which shows he tipped a hefty $3,000. Next, we have greed versus charity, which can be represented by Nicolas Cage and Shaquille O'Neal. Greed is defined as the immoderate love or desire for riches and earthly possessions, which describes Nicolas Cage to a T. Best known for his roles in movies such as National Treasure and Leaving Las Vegas, Cage was once a top earner in Hollywood worth $150 million, but he didn't hold on to his fortune for long. He squandered it on a string of expensive and seemingly random purchases, eventually facing foreclosure on several properties and owing the IRS $6.3 million in property taxes. He splashed out on a whopping 15 residences, including a $25 million waterfront home in California, a $15.7 million countryside estate in Rhode Island, and an $8.5 million abode in Las Vegas. He also purchased the infamous LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans for $3.4 million, which is known as one of the most haunted houses in America. Over in Europe, he bought not one but two castles for $10 million and $2.3 million respectively. Who knows why one man would have the need for so many properties, but he blew a significant amount of his money on them. Cage also bought 4 yachts to go along with his properties, one each for the Caribbean, Mediterranean, California, and Rhode Island. Then come the more wacky purchases. A $3 million deserted island in the Bahamas, a 9-foot-tall burial tomb, shrunken pygmy heads, and an array of exotic animals including 2 albino king cobras that set him back $270,000, a pet octopus worth $150,000, and before I forget, a shark and a crocodile. Allegedly, he even got into a bidding war with Leonardo DiCaprio over a 70-million-year-old dinosaur skull, taking it home with him for $270,000. His list of odd purchases goes on and on, but Cage has attributed his financial ruin to being overinvested in real estate when the 2008 financial crisis happened.
I was overinvested in real estate. It wasn't because I spent $80 on an octopus. The real estate market crashed and I couldn't get out in time.
After that point, he had to take up numerous acting jobs to pay back his debts, sometimes filming 3 or 4 movies in a single year. On the flip side, we have Shaquille O'Neal, who embodies the virtue of charity, a willingness or desire to help others and better the world. Like Cage, Shaq had a really successful career that made him very wealthy, but the ways he's chosen to spend that money couldn't be more different. You see, Shaq grew up in a poor household in Newark, New Jersey. His family struggled to make ends meet, having to move from house to house and use food stamps to get by. He had a very tough upbringing, but what he lacked in resources was made up for by the important lessons his parents taught him. One day, Shaq was in the car with his stepfather when his dad spotted a man in army fatigues. He immediately did a U-turn and started speaking to the man.
So the guy was down on his luck, and we had like 5 double cheeseburgers left. My father had $20. And in my mind, I'm like, what are you doing, bro? I'm gonna eat that later. When y'all go to sleep, after everybody get there, I'm gonna eat, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, selfish at this point. Like, you finally get some change, I get to stop eating army crackers and army cheese. This is my food. So he gives the guy the food, and he gets in the car and he slams the door and he got a little tear in his eye, and he just looks and says, if you ever make, and like I remember these words, if you ever make it big time, make sure you help those in need.
And that's exactly what he's done. Shaq has lent his name and image to charities such as Be The Match, the Rainbow Push Coalition, Feed the Children, and many more. He created the Shaquille O'Neal Boys and Girls Club, the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation, and Shaka Claus, all of which provide kids from underprivileged backgrounds with better education, resources, meals, and more. He might also be the king of random acts of kindness. There's a time he bought a stranger an engagement ring. The time he bought 2 kids he just met, Max.
Get 2 of these. 2 of these.
And the time he bought a family a washer and dryer from Home Depot.
Nice to meet you. We are buying a washer and dryer.
Okay, I'm gonna pay for
I'm
it.
from
Really?
Venezuela.
Oh my
I'm
God,
from Venezuela. Ay, no va a comprarle lavadora y la secadora. Oh, no.
Whenever I go to a store from now on, I'm buying somebody else something. Period.
All in all, Shaq has donated millions towards charitable causes and changed countless lives.
Because of what a man that made $30,000 a year taught me. From a woman who was a secretary, probably made $20,000 a year. They taught me that. So, a lot of people, when they look at me and the charities that I do, this is from the heart.
I think if Shaq didn't have money, he worked as a truck driver or anything, he would still show compassion to people. I believe it is not money that makes him generous, but his heart. For Sloth versus Diligence, we have two artists that fit the bill, Frank Ocean and Drake. Sloth can be described as laziness or apathy or an unwillingness to do work, which seems fitting of Frank Ocean since his career suffered from extended periods of inactivity. By many, Frank is considered to be a pioneer of the alternative R&B genre, as he broke out of the predetermined definitions of what the genre was supposed to be. His first studio album, Channel Orange, was released in 2012 and it made waves, debuting at number 2 on the Billboard chart. Its mix of electro-pop, rap, and psychedelic influenced tracks was refreshing, and Frank was expected to have a prolific and plentiful career.
It's just really about trying to do whatever it is that I do at a level of excellence, and that's really all I'm trying to do.
But from there was a long 4-year wait till the release of his next studio album, Blonde. Again, this album was hugely successful, and through it he gave fans a small window into his life, making the mystery and fascination around him rise to new heights. But if listeners thought the last wait between albums was long, what's followed must feel like an eternity. Blonde was released in 2016, and still, almost 8 years later, Ocean is yet to release another album. There's been much speculation as to why, such as that he may be busy working on his jewelry brand Homer, or still mourning the death of his younger brother who died in a car crash in 2020, but it's impossible to know for sure. What we do know is that Frank is an extremely private person who chooses to make very few public appearances and steers clear of doing interviews. His lack of desire to be in the spotlight can also be observed in his art, as he hardly does any live performances. This is why it was such a big deal in 2023 when he headlined Coachella. It was his first live performance for almost 6 years, so the hype around it was unreal, but the show ended up being a disaster. He showed up over an hour late and then proceeded to deliver strange, often dramatically rearranged performances of his songs, which made it hard for fans to get into it or sing along. Not only that, but he lip-synced some songs, danced around the stage without singing at all while others played, and would walk off the stage for minutes at a time between each one. This left fans a mix of annoyed, angry, and disappointed, as many had camped out all day to see him perform. There are videos from that night that show people abandoning the set in droves. To add insult to injury, Frank cancelled the second show he was supposed to do at Coachella due to a reported leg fracture. Now when you compare this to Drake, the difference is night and day. Drake embodies the virtue of diligence, which can be described as careful and persistent work or effort. He's managed to stay at the top of the music industry for what feels like forever, and it's for good reason. From 2010 to the current day, he's released 8 studio albums and 1 collaborative album, and worked with artists spanning multiple different genres and countries. Throughout this time, he's consistently been at the top of the charts, and his list of hits is too long to count. But it makes sense when you consider the mentality he's had from the very beginning.
Why do you care so much about success? Have you figured that out?
I'm just addicted to it.
Why?
I think that I've sacrificed so much for it already and dedicated so much of my time that I have to push it as far as I possibly can.
It's no mistake that Drake is as big and culturally relevant as he is today. This interview with his old bodyguard gives a glimpse as to what it really takes.
I used to guard Drake for a long time, 6 years.
What did you take from that experience of like being around someone like that?
To be honest, work ethic.
Yeah.
Like I thought I had work ethic, like, and I do, but like to see a guy at that level, like to watch this person go out like night after night, especially on tours and like perform, like it's like robotic, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like in a very positive way, not like in a negative way. And you'd figure like someone that's doing that kind of work would have an off night to like understand like that level of work ethic and that level of consistency is like, it's pretty wild to see.